choice in the minds of people who make the decisions. So when management decides, okay, someone is leaving, who do we put there? Make sure it's your name on top of the list. And I think that's why I found my niche, and I rose through the ranks precisely because of that. And it took a lot of hard work, discipline, commitment, resolve, and the willingness to take any challenge, to become the first person of choice. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
I agree with Dida, actually. Very often, you will not know your niche until you try something new. You got to be pushed into it. And so the key there is to keep on pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. Try something new until you have found your niche. The career and life is a process of discovery. And you will not know until you try it. When I graduated from UP, I was so square-minded, thinking that I can only be an engineer. Until my bosses in P&G kept on pushing me to do other things. And even when I was pushed, actually in my career, I went from R&D to what we call product supply. Into the manufacturing department. I had to build a factory. I had to relocate factories. I had to fire people, hire new people. And I discovered I didn't like that. I didn't like managing a manufacturing department where every few years I had to go through a collective bargaining agreement with the labor union. That wasn't my niche. And I was pushed into marketing. And in the first 2 years of marketing, I hated that. In fact, I admire people like Alden, because I remember I asked Alden to move from R&D and into marketing. And Alden shifted into marketing just like that without any transitional issues. And I got to have a lot of respect for Alden. And he did very well. That's why he progressed further in his marketing career. Alden, you want to respond to that?
Yes, well, yes, actually, the niche is, well, I would define the niche as basically what is your comfort zone. And I guess from a career standpoint, what I'm happy about looking back is I work on jobs that I always found very interesting. I don't have that Monday feeling I have to go to work again. None of that, because yeah, I think I found that niche, which is actually understanding consumers and understanding them so that you're able to identify the big ideas for innovation. And which is what Johnip mentioned, when I transitioned from R&D to marketing, what I brought to marketing was that technical consumer understanding, because the type of work that we did in P&G in research was that we did the formulation work, but we had to identify the consumer vocabulary. Now, what are they really looking for? No, for example, with fragrance, no, we can go technical on the fragrance, on the types of chemicals that you add into the formulation. But when you talk to the consumers, vague sila. They just say, mabango, matagal ang bango. No, so the role of research was critical because we were the bridge between what consumers were saying, and they had limited vocabulary, and what our technical group is capable of creating. So that was a skill that I found very useful wherever I went, in all the companies I got to. No? So even when I went to ABS-CBN, you have to have that understanding of consumers. No? So doon naman yung product, yung program. So we look at the ratings every minute. No? And then each minute, nagtataas o kaya bababa. And you have to understand why. What do consumers see in the program that made them stick to it, or what made them shift to another channel. and that's a skill that you can bring wherever you go, no? So I think that's the niche that I found, the ability to understand consumers, be inquisitive, be curious, and the results will come if you do that.
Elsie, did you want to add something?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, in our company, I'm the customer's advocate because I really understand what the customer needs, having gone through grad school and understanding plastics. And so it's my 24th year in JG Summit. And over those years, I have mentored many chemical engineers who now are in different parts of the company and are in the succession plans of the VPs. And I think that I feel very good that I have contributed to these people. They also are advocates of customers. I think for me, that's the most important, knowing what the customer really wants. And so if you know that, then you can help the company expand. You can take any new technology that the company adopts. And as we sit here, we are planning for the commissioning of a brand new plant next year that will make probably 7 times of what we used to make when I first entered the company. And I have in my division 29 heads whom I usually take them in first as new graduates. So these people have grown with me, and I like to think that I'm very proud of how they have become, and I see that that is my legacy to the company. That organization with a brain and creativity that is able to compete with foreign companies who make other brands. I think that I am very much fulfilled, and I feel that that's proof of the fact that I found my niche.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that how, the students hopefully see that how you find your niche could be serendipity. It could be planned because you know actually what you want in life. Some of us are fortunate enough to know that early on. But wherever it takes you, right? I think the key message I hear in everyone's talk is what's the fit? Where do you feel good? Where do you feel comfortable? But even though you're comfortable, you still have that stretch, right? You're still willing to learn and to be challenged. So thank you very much. And I hope our students get inspiration from that. So I'll move now to the second set of questions that we have, which are around the development of skills. So I know you've talked a lot about skills here, and maybe I'm going to focus the skills more around the skills that we're looking at in our CHE 198. So what skills do you consider to have been the most critical or most helpful in your success in your career? And, it could be something else other than what I have written here, but I would like to know, as the students in our class would like to know, how important were communication, collaboration, and self-advocacy, and how you develop them. So this time, maybe I guess I'll start with Elsie. I'll start with you this time, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine, Winnie. I think that the most important skill is innovation, being able to innovate, being able to make something new of value out of any situation or opportunity or threat. That is, turning a threat into an opportunity. That is one of the best innovations that you can make. And to be able to innovate, you have to be able to communicate really well. with others with whom you want to collaborate. And for me, it's not so much self-advocacy. It's about advocacy of the team. When I know I want to innovate with somebody, I advocate for that team, which means that everything is fluid. There's not much, I don't know which idea is mine. I don't know which idea is his or hers. What's important is we put together a new thing, a breakthrough thing, sort of, that will take the team to another place, which puts it in which is much better than where we were when we started the meeting, for instance. So I think it's innovation where communication and collaboration are really important, and team advocacy.
Okay. Well, Johnip, how about you? Would you like to answer?
For me, I think it's leadership skills. You know, I've always followed this model of leadership called the 5E leadership, 5 E's. The first E is envision. And so you got to be able to envision your future. That's easy to understand. A leader must know how to envision the future for his business and for his people. The second E is to be able to energize. So energize is to be able to motivate people, but it also means to be able to develop the right strategies to achieve your objectives, the right strategies to win. Because if your strategies are not winning, your people will not be motivated. Everybody wants to work for winning companies, winning teams. So that's the second E, is to energize. The third E is to enable. Enable means to be able to develop your people, to train them so that they can help you and the company achieve its objectives. The fourth E is to be able to execute. While if you're in a leadership position, you are not supposed to be very hands-on, but you got to make sure that your people are executing well. You got to make sure the resources are there, the processes are there, the technologies are there so that things can be executed well. And the fifth E is to engage tough issues. What are tough issues? The toughest issues are usually people issues. You know, when you join a company, you usually develop friends with the people in the company. They become your friends, or they're your compare, your comare, because when their children want to get baptized, you'll be their godfather, godmother, and vice versa. You become friends, and then when you get to a position of leadership, you actually have to evaluate people and see who are performing and who are not performing. And you gotta be, for those who are not performing and they are your friends, what do? You gotta engage them. You gotta tell them the truth that they are not performing well. They have to shape up and give them an opportunity to improve themselves. Or else, what's gonna happen, right? So those are tough decisions that leaders have to engage with. Or if an organization gets too bloated, a leader has to make the decision to downsize, to right size. And it's always very tough because when you downsize, you are making a decision to affect the well-being of other families, and that's not a lot of fun. And there are other tough issues. I recall one tough issue was to engage with DChE in our industry issue. DChE is pro-coconut, very much pro-coconut. And when I became the general manager, I had to fight one issue with DChE, which was reducing the content of coconut fatty alcohol sulfate in our detergents. Why? Because it was harming the hands of our consumers. The coconut fatty alcohol detergent is very efficient. It cleans very well, but it cleans so well that it strips the oil out of your fingers. The fingers become very dry, and our lavandera who scrub their laundry with their bare hands, they get cracks and they get blisters. And so unfortunately, Dida, I had to fight that issue and try to also work with Congress to undo the legislation. And that was tough because I never wanted to engage with that issue, but I had to do it. So the five 5E models, again, envision, energize, enable, execute, engage, tough issues.
Thank you for that, Johnip. How about we go to, I don't think we, Alden, do you have anything to add on what you consider to be critical skills
what I
for
can
your
share is,
success?
that in P&G, we were actually trained on how to do interviews. So we had a 2-day seminar on how to conduct this and ask the right questions so that we're able to identify the candidates who will fit into the company. And there are 5. So there are 5 traits or skills that you have shown while you were in college, and these, I think, are skills that you also carry throughout your career. So, and you just hone it in a deeper and deeper sense as you progress. And there are 5. One is leadership. So you really have to be able to show that you get things done, not just through yourself, but through the group that you are leading. So we want to look for evidence, what you've done in school, in the organizations, in your group, with your group mates, in your thesis. And we also call it the CAR when you ask the questions, context, action, and results. So when you ask about the thesis, we specifically probe into what did you specifically contribute, kasi group work yan, so we have to be able to discern from the interview what you specifically contributed. So in what way did you help? So that's also one thing you need to be clear on when you go to these interviews. So leadership is one. Second is technical mastery. So that's also very important, especially when you join a company that is working on formulations. So we want to see how good you are with your formulation work, with your background on chemistry. So we ask questions on that. Then third is communications. Communications, at least you have the basic, but it gets to be honed through time. Like we learn to write thesis that would be pakapalan ng submission. But when you go to work, paiksian ng memo. So we want to see that clarity of thought, that you are able to write what we call in the 1-page memo of PNG. Naroon in 1 page, you crystallize everything that you want to communicate to your boss. It's not that full volume na pahirap pang basahin. Your bosses will not have time for that. And then working well with others. That's something that you start also in school. In the organizations. I'm sure you've had your cases of having teammates who are not doing their part. So how do you manage that? When you go to the real world to work, you get to be more exposed to a lot more personalities. Unlike pag sa school, di ba, you're all taught the same way by the same teachers, so medyo pare-pare pa kayo. But when you go to UP, you get exposed to different backgrounds. Merong galing province, merong galing Manila. And then ganun din when you go to work, ganun din sa ABS-CBN, you have corporate people, tapos meron mga parang galing din sa palengke na naroon din. And you have to work with a variety of personalities. So that's something that you will develop through your career. So, and then the last is strategic thinking. We really value how you think, what is the logic behind your thinking, because in work you're going to be deluged with a lot of possible things to do, a lot of distractions, a lot of parang at the end of the day parang ano ba yung ginawa ko? No? I feel so tired, but did I accomplish really the things that needed to be done? No, so we need strategic thinking skills that again you develop better and better in your career. So yun.
Thanks, Alden. And Diday. Miss Diday, ikaw
Yeah.
naman.
Really, yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I think communication is really very important. How you're able to get your ideas across, because if people don't understand what you're saying, you're never going to make it. So I think it's a practice that you need to do, that you make sure that when you say something, people understand the idea that you're trying to get across. And the other thing is really listening. Because when you go out to talk to customers, you also need to be able to listen and understand what their needs are. So it's really communication, speaking and listening. Another thing is really the willingness to accept anything that is any assignment that's given to you. I mean, I hear about people friends of mine who are in HR say that some UP graduates say, I'm not going to do that because I'm a UP graduate. And I find that so unfortunate. You should be willing to take anything that's given to you, because it is always an opportunity to learn. So be open to whatever is assignment is given to you. And the other thing, I don't really know whether it's a skill, but I think it's what they call grit. It's the ability to stay on a job as long as it takes to accomplish what you need to be done. A lot of times, like I see the younger people now, they quickly give up. I see that in my children. But I think that's so important that you just continually push yourself and stay on the job. And also not be satisfied with what is there, what is current. Because I've seen in my career that there is always room for improvement for any process. So that's something I think that's very important as you grow in your career.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, panelists. So we heard a lot of good skills that the students can look at, hopefully developing. So anywhere from, the skills we put down here, which by the way is what we are tackling in CHE 198, but all the way up, hopefully, but when they have these skills, which are grounded pretty much, we put a lot of emphasis on communication. And hopefully once they have that, it will help them progress through to leadership skills that both Johnip and Alden had alluded to. And then finally, all the other skills, such as grit. You mentioned grit. It's the same as resilience, longevity, right? Persistence. I mean, so hopefully you'll see that there are a lot of skills that we do need. But the thing that I heard you all say is that you basically developed these skills as you went along, right? I mean, so I'm going to go to the next question, which is, it's a little, because I never heard you say that UP helped you with these critical skills. So I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot or put UP in a bad light, but how did the UP chemical engineering curriculum prepare you for those critical skills? Do you think that it did, or is there something we can do to help our students, start off on a better footing when they get to industry or academia? Any suggestions? That was a loaded question. I know, I'm sorry.
Really, I can start.
Okay.
One of the things that was so helpful being a chemical engineering student in UP was learning analytical thinking. And I think Alden mentioned that, strategic thinking, analytical thinking, and problem solving. Because basically when you're in a job, that's about everything. What a lot of your time is going to be spent analyzing situations and coming up with solutions to problems. So problem solving. And that's basically all we did when we were, in chemical engineering students. We analyzed problems. We were asked to solve the problems, and also, looking at ways to improve the process. So you really, I really believe that UP helped me develop this kind of thinking process, that it almost became, it became a habit. This is the way I think. And, when the people I work with always tell me that, wow, how did you see that? How did you discover that? And sometimes I think, why don't you see it? Because I saw it. But I think the difference is that we were really trained to look at everything and analyze everything when we were students in UP. It was just a training that was that we had in UP that made it possible. Finding solutions, doing things better is something that I learned being UP and being a chemical engineering student.
Don't you think that it becomes a given though, coming from UP, that it's almost a given that you will be technically strong, you will be an analytical thinker, you will be a strategic thinker. And I think what I'm trying to get at is, do we need something beyond that to be successful? And I think that was why we asked the question before. What were the things that made you successful? Because I don't think I heard any of you say, I became successful because I'm technically savvy, I'm smart, I heard you say I'm innovative, I was a good communicator, I was a team player, right? I was a good leader.
Really, we didn't mention that because, like you said, it's a given. I mean, if
yes,
you're from UP chemical engineering, you're assumed to be smart, analytical. You know what I'm saying?
yes. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, is there something else that, granted you already were smart and everything because you came from UP. Was that enough to get to where you were? Where you got yourself?
Really, for me, the curriculum that really helped me from studying in UP chemical engineering, it was plant design. Mm-hmm. Plant design is the ultimate thing a chemical engineer has to do in order to graduate, because it's the culmination of everything that you've learned. You got to put everything that you've learned together into your plant design, right? Like when we were given our project, we were given one chemical equation. And I was under Professor Festin then. Festin gave me an equation, gave me and William, my partner, an equation to transform coconut oil into gasoline. And he expected, from that equation, he expected us to develop the process, the equipment, the factory design, the commercial aspects of that, the cost of building that factory, the commercial aspect of selling that as a gasoline, the environmental aspect of treating the byproducts that will not destroy the environment, etc. And in those days, we had no internet. We had no Google search. Oh my God, we had to learn how to be resourceful, very resourceful, in order to do our work, to get the necessary data, to produce the plant design, to prove that it can be economically viable, commercially viable, and undergo the scrutiny of the professor to make sure everything is done right. So I've learned from that how to be resourceful. And I think, as you would have experience in your career too, your company will always value you if you are very resourceful to help solve problems, to help innovate, to produce new products, to produce new technologies, to make them commercially viable, etc., etc. That resourcefulness is what I learned from my chemical engineering course.
Anybody else want to chime in? Or
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
Jess,
Winnie, so
okay, let's see.
yes, so did I said problem solving, Johnip, resourcefulness? For me, it's flexibility
Mhm,
and just plain confidence
mhm,
that you can get things done,
mhm,
and that for me, as I already said, I've been building an organization, this division I built it from practically, very few people. And so it's also about forward thinking,
mhm,
knowing, having a good understanding of what people could accomplish over a decade probably, and putting them where they would best be, having them work on their strengths, and knowing where the market would go, which means that you would develop a particular new category of products in that particular market. I think forward thinking, I think I learned it also from UP.
mhm. Good. Wonderful. Well, it's great to know that the UP curriculum helped prepare for these skills that, as you said, do need to be honed as you are on the job, especially as you aspire for leadership positions. Okay. Okay. So, so the next question we had to do with innovation. So, Jude, I think we can probably skip this because they they did actually already tell us that that is an important skill. So, our next question is if I guess this is asking for an advice. Okay, any advice? If there is something you wish you had known sooner that would have made your career development more smoothly or go according to plan, what would it be, and if you can share it with us? So if you could, I know when I ask people to give me one tip or lesson or best practice or tip, they always ask, why not, why just one, right? So I'll let you get creative, but if you can tell us one tip that you have, it could be based on, something you wish you had known sooner. Anybody want to start?
Alden?
Alden?
Alden.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, what happened was that when I joined the company and I worked on the technical stuff on formulation work of detergents, I was interfacing with manufacturing because I needed to run trials there, and we were always at odds because R&D would take into the manufacturing time, no? And they're being measured on how efficient they are. So R&D is inefficient for them. And then you'd also work with marketing, no? So in terms of how do you best market the product, what kind of claims do you have to make so that your product will be well accepted by the consumers, no? So these were things that I guess I learned on the job, but I thought that mukhang kulang ako, no? So I was honed on the technical side in college. So I decided that since I'm not going to pursue the fully technical molecular kind of career, I decided to get an MBA about 2 years after. And I think that was one of the best decisions I made at the time. So I invested extra time. So after, it was evening class. So after I work during the day, so I go to school after, also in UP, no? And I guess if we had a glimpse of what marketing is and what manufacturing is while in college, that I think that would make us more well-rounded so that we will be more equipped in doing the type of research job that you would get into when you start.
You know, actually, I agree with Alden. You know, in our Procter and Gamble company, the Indians are very successful. Indians. And in fact, if you look around the world, who is the CEO of Microsoft? He's an Indian, right? You look at other big companies, it's the Indians who are CEOs. And in P&G, I analyzed the educational background of Indians and what they aspire to learn. And you will always see that an Indian at the bachelor degree would get an engineering degree, almost always. Then work for a couple of years, then go for an MBA degree. So a combination of engineering and MBA would propel them into a marketing career and eventually into general management and a company leadership career. And I wish I had known that better, because I've always looked down on an MBA degree. I've never felt it was important. I've always felt that on-the-job learning from the Fort of Hard Knocks was more important than sitting in a classroom and learning MBA cases. But I have a lot of respect for the Indians in their career path. They're very, very successful around the world in many, many multinational global companies. And I think there's something we can learn from them, is that combination of getting well-grounded in an engineering or a technical course followed by a master's degree in a business course.
That's a very interesting perspective, Johnip. I mean, I had also considered doing an MBA. Then I took just an in-house course. I couldn't even stay up to do the homework. So I decided, no, it's not for me, too late. So I think my advice would be, just like what Alden did, if you want to do that, do it as early as you can. Because the longer you stay on the job, and then as soon as you have a family, things change. I see Dida's and Elsie shaking her heads. Yeah. So Dida and Elsie, did any contributions?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on this. Yes, I'm speaking basically to the women. You know, one advice I would like to give to the women is don't act on your emotions. You know, we are very emotional, and there are many times that we decide based on our emotions. And I've found that in my career, I probably would have committed less mistakes if I wasn't so emotional. You know, like your relationships with your bosses who weren't probably you know, you weren't getting along with. You know, if I had probably been less emotional, I would have probably had an easier time. So women, don't act on your emotions. Even if, you know, women are supposed to be allowed to be emotional. The other thing is really focus on your goal. Once you've set that goal, develop the habits to reach that goal. Because sometimes, like especially women, we especially working women, we have the family that will distract us from the goals. We have so many responsibilities that we're juggling at the same time. And I think what can keep us steady is really focusing on the goal, despite all of the other distractions or challenges you have in your life as a woman. And the only way to do it is to build habits. Build habits so that you know that you're accomplishing what you need to do by a certain time, by a certain date. And I want to suggest, you know, I don't know whether you've read the book Atomic Habits. Try to see whether you can get that book. It's going to be, you know, it's a bestseller. It's almost revolutionary. Help you develop the habits and focus on your goal. And then also don't stop learning, read a lot. And, you know, whenever you have free time, you're so fortunate that the internet is there and there are libraries that you can go to and learn. So just keep on learning as long as you can.
Thank you, Dida. Elsie?
Sorry about that. Well, I started learning about sustainability in around the year 2000, and I thought that that was late. I
Mhm.
should have learned about it much earlier. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Elsie. I think that that is actually, well, we can talk about that. It's a nice segue to the next question. This is actually our last prepared question, which is about our profession. What do you consider as the biggest challenge? So let's stick to one challenge so that we can have time to answer the other questions that the audience may have submitted. What do you consider as the biggest challenge facing the chemical engineering profession in the Philippines today? And I guess as related to that, what advice can you give our aspiring chemical engineering students as they prepare to tackle these challenges?
Winnie, can I start with that?
Sure, Diliman.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I believe one of the biggest challenges that we have is there's really less opportunities in the chemical engineering profession in the Philippines, basically because there hasn't been a lot of investments in chemical plants over the past 10 years in the Philippines. So for some reason, investments are going to places like Indonesia and Vietnam in Southeast Asia. Because of that, there will be less and less opportunities. And so my advice is that you don't necessarily have to take a job that is purely, chemical process design or, running a plant. It's not necessary. You should be willing to take other roles that are available. And then which hopefully can lead you to opportunities maybe outside of the Philippines. So that's my take on this.
Oh, thanks, Diliman. Any other insights? Biggest challenge? I know it's another loaded question. Well, Elsie, you mentioned sustainability. So I just wanted to chime in on that. So one of the things I see that's the biggest challenge for us is around the area of sustainability. Sustainability. And I know I come from the energy industry, and in that sense, it's all around renewables and, taking care of our environment. And in fact, the special project that we have given to our students is to do a concept note, preferably a one-pager, there you go, Alden, on a project that's around environmental, issues or sustainability in the Philippines, with a particular focus on trying to alleviate, the disadvantaged communities. So in that area, right, a lot of the impact is worse on our disadvantaged communities. So what kinds of things can we do about that? So that is the challenge we've given to the students. They're also supposed to do a 3-minute thesis presentation around that. So the course tries to, merge technical thinking as well with communications. And we're trying to get them to start to think about how to communicate in the corporate world, which is, to the point, right? Strategic, concise.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Winnie?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, there's this trend that by Filipino, there's a lot more nationalistic pride. So you want to support the local economy. And if you look at the capital expenditure data, a significant chunk, almost 50%, is spent on food. No, so I guess the more than a challenge, it's probably an opportunity that if we look at the chemical engineering preparation as including food engineering, of course, there's a lot of natural ingredients involved also. No, but I mean, it opens more avenues, I think, for the chemical engineer, because like I came from detergents, and then afterwards, my career went to food industries. No, so there's a lot of opportunity there. Mostly mga food tech ang mga na-hire, but I think if you have that technology part of the chemical engineering curriculum, then the chemical engineers will have a more channels to get into in terms of job opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that insight, Alden. It's true, as I said during the first part, chemical engineering, there's really a lot that we can do. It's just that, as Dida said, the industries are not here, the opportunities are not here, which is unfortunate. And so, hopefully we will have entrepreneurs among our aspiring chemical engineers who will actually go out and start these things that we want to see, right? Well, Elsie or Johnip, anything else to add?
Yes.
Elsie?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So in JG Summit, we are commissioning an expanded plant this month and a brand new plant next. We've had 5 projects so far, big plants, and 4 more plants very soon until next year. And we've grown from less than 300 to now on more than 1,200. And we still have openings for chemical engineers, both at the plant and in market and product development, which I head. And well, I've been finding myself in Congress as well, because we have to set the fake news right, because it is not easy doing this, because as you know, there's a single-use plastics ban in Congress, and not all plastics naman should be banned, because there's as you know, Winnie, there's a study of the American Chemistry Council which says that if you would replace all the plastic packaging, then you'd have double the global warming contributions, triple the smog, 5 times the water requirement. And so this stuff I have spoken to Congress about at least thrice. I presented to the technical working groups, and because it's not just about our lawmakers needing to learn more about the truth of about the environmental impacts of plastics. It's also about our engineers. We want our engineers to know the truth, that if you would ban all the plastic packaging and replace it with the alternatives, it would be much worse for the environment. So I still say, please go and check out JG Summit, Petrochemical Corporation, because actually we have more than 600 engineers out of the 1,200 plus, and of the more than almost 700 engineers. And out of the 700 engineers, probably 300, close to 300 chemical engineers. And you can go anywhere you want to go. You can go to supply chain. JG Summit likes UP Camping. That's what I can say. So please check us out.
Thank you, Elsie. Yeah, I think that's true of any industry. There's no silver bullet. There is no one solution. So I come from the oil industry. So as you can see, right now, this is not a good time for oil, right? We're big bad oil. But honestly, if all of the gasoline stations in the Philippines were to close and shut down, what would happen, right? It's just not going to happen right away. It's got to be a multi-pronged solution, right? Where everybody chips in, tries to do something, and then cooperatively you move on to the next big reality. Johnip, any last words from you before we end this?
I wanted to say, normally when you think about a career in chemical engineering, you think about big industries, right? The oil industry, where you're from, Winnie. But I think there are other needs in the Philippines that can use chemical engineering. The Philippines is still an agricultural economy. Agriculture employs 60% of our workforce. And yet our farmers are poor. Productivity is low. And I think this is where chemical engineering can help. I got exposed to a company called Allied Botanical Corporation. It's owned by a friend of mine who asked me to join his board so that I could help his wife after he passed away. You know, he asked me to join him because he developed cancer and he eventually passed away. And so I'm now helping his wife. And I'm understanding a lot of these technologies that are chemical engineering related. For example, to improve agricultural yield, farmers have to use a lot of fertilizers. But you know, when you put fertilizers in the soil and you spray it with water or the rain comes, the fertilizer ingredients simply seep to the ground and go under the roots. So the vegetables or the plants are not able to absorb them over a long period of time. There's a lot of wastage. And now there are technologies that could encapsulate the fertilizers so that they don't dissolve immediately. It's a sort of a time release fertilizer, so they stay above at the soil level. And as the ground is getting watered every day, it releases the fertilizers gradually. And that made the vegetables or the plants much, much more productive. And this is now, these types of fertilizers are now also being used for palm plantations, vegetables, etc. So I think if we could harness the skill of chemical engineering into the field of agriculture, we can uplift a lot of very poor farmers. We can make the Philippines much, much more productive, increase the GDP much, much bigger, because we are, at the end of the day, still an agricultural economy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Johnip. And thanks, panel, for answering those prepared questions that we have. So now I'm going to turn to Jude. Jude, were there any questions submitted?
And yes, po, so you should be able to see now, po, we have here questions coming in from our audience. The top question, most like, can you tell us about a low point in your career, especially as a fresh graduate, and how you were able to overcome it?
So we have 11 questions. Jude?
Yes po, but we can focus po on the hot questions.
Oh, sige, the hot questions. So we have we have 8 minutes to go. So parang speed networking, speed answers. Low point in your career, especially as a fresh graduate. Walang mga low points ang mga mga panelists natin.
Yeah, ako, really,
Alden.
not really early in your career, but I guess it was more a challenge of managing your career and your personal life. So magkakaroon ng conflict, and in my case, it was when my mother got ill, no? So I had to take care of her, and I had to take several absences, no? So parang ano ba, nanay ma o career, ganun yung feeling. And I felt that it was a low point because I'm not used to getting a low performance rating, and then that was the year I just got an average, no? So parang mabigat yung pakiramdam, but at the same time you feel that it was a decision that was correct, no? I think I should spend it for my mother at that time. And then I guess it was just temporary, because after that, so my mom passed away, no, so balik na naman ako sa career. So yun, I guess that's one thing I guess you can look, you might experience in the future, no, yung balancing of career and your personal life.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, Elsie, go ahead.
Yes, there were 6 years of my life where I had 4 kids in a row. And I said, no, I'm not going through these childbearing years without learning something new. So that's when I took my master's. I really, for me, you know, nothing will get me in a state where I'm not learning. The more disruptions there are, the more I strive to really go into something that asks me to stretch. So I
Good.
don't think it is work-life balance. It's really about going for what you want and self-advocacy at this time.
All right.
For me, you know, for fresh graduates, you should know that sometimes you're gonna get a boss that's really lousy. You know, an asshole kind of a boss, if you know what I mean. You know what's an asshole? An asshole is somebody who's never satisfied with what you do. You recommend something, you think it's a bright idea, your boss will tell you, no, it's not good enough. You come back, you refine your idea, and he says, no, it's not good enough. Or a boss who thinks that only his ideas are right, your ideas are never right. And you're never good enough. And that's very demotivating. And so you have 2 choices. One is to continue to work or to quit, right? If you want to continue to work, my advice is think that if you can prove that that your boss can respect you, just imagine if you can get the respect of an asshole boss, how successful are you gonna be in the company? You know, if you can pass that type of a boss, you are, I guarantee you, you're gonna be very successful because there's nothing impossible for you anymore. The other thing to think is that your boss, no matter how bad he is not the company. A boss is always temporary, and the boss will eventually be replaced because you're gonna move around in the company and you're gonna get to a better boss. So do not let a lousy boss depress you or force you to quit, and never quit.
Okay. Diday, did you have something to add?
Yeah, it's the same situation as Johnip. You know, I came under a boss who was very difficult. And, you know, I just kept doing the best I could. And I think our boss was higher than my boss, noticed that there was this rift, and he stepped in and actually talked to my boss to treat me better. So I just kept doing the right thing. And because our boss was found me valuable, then he had to solve the problem. So just stay where you are and do the best that you
Yeah.
can.
Thanks, Diday.
Yes,
So I
really.
guess demonstrate value. Yes, Elsie.
Yes, I had a boss who didn't want to talk to me because I knew more than he did about the job. And he didn't want to talk to me. So how was my performance appraisal? It was just very low, but he didn't talk to me. So I went to HR and said, I want to move somewhere else. And they moved me. And every time, well, that was an expat. I think there were probably 2 more expats who were like that. And every time they got removed. That's what Johnip says. You know, you have to be confident that you know what you're doing. And, you know, but I think it's really important if you're in such a situation, you should go and talk to HR so that they can move you somewhere else.
Okay. All right. So Jude, what is our next question?
Yeah, and so another hot question po is, as a fresh grad, a lot of us are finding it hard to find jobs. So what advice could you give po to those who are starting their career?
I mean, anyone can start, but I think I heard, was it Diday? Somebody gave that advice to not just consider the traditional chemical engineering jobs, nor the big companies, right? And try and expand yourself to other companies as well. Sorry, I know the panelists had mentioned that, and I just thought I'd say it again. But if there's any other advice that you might have.
My advice is, do not just focus on a company or a particular industry. It's more important to sniff around and look at a company that can provide opportunities. Opportunities can be defined in many ways. You can see from my family name, I'm a Filipino Chinese. So my mother would always advise us and her grandchildren that it is better to look for a boss who can teach you how to grow, how to run a business, so that someday you can run your own business. This is usually the mindset of Filipino Chinese. We don't want to be professionals, right? We want to own our own businesses. And so look for companies who are known to have businesses that you're interested in, or have bosses who can train you. And that is probably more important than trying to look for a job that can give you a long-lasting career. So this is another career path. The career path I took was with Proctor Gamble. In Proctor Gamble, it is expected that when we joined the company, we're supposed to retire in the company. We were not expected to be jumping around, and so those career paths are now more rare. And as you have pointed out in this question, it's very hard to find jobs these days that are a perfect fit for you. So I offer that other way, which is try to look for a business career, but you don't get into business suddenly. I mean, without any preparation. You got to get some training, and you get that training by first learning from businesses and bosses who can help you.
And if I may add to that, Johnip, if finances are not a big consideration, I would suggest considering volunteering. So there are certain organizations that will take volunteers. A lot of nonprofits will take volunteers, and maybe that's where you can learn the skills, say for establishing a business or any other thing that you may want to be involved in.
Winnie also wanted to add, like as Johnip had said, think of the first job as a stepping stone. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be where you'll build your career. It can be a stepping stone, and learn as much as you can until an opportunity in the right industry comes along, or a job that fits what your long-term goal is.
And Winnie, may I add?
Sure, go ahead, please jump in.
Yes, I think that it's really important that the company's culture matches yours. The company's culture matches your values, matches yours. So again, I would invite to JG Summit, which is part of the Gokongwei group, our students who are graduating, because our values are integrity, dynamism, and entrepreneurship. And if you're like-minded, then you would do really well in JG Summit.
May trabaho na kayo lahat. Nandyan si Elsie.
At kayo, yan. Just tell them Elsie sent me.
Maraming openings eh.
Okay. All right. Alden, you have something to add?
Yeah, well, kasi yung advice maybe not just the fresh graduates, but I guess to the department, no, yung placement, the placement process, no, kasi di ba K-12, K1 to 12 na, so parang there are some companies that get those who graduate from K-12 na. Ganun din for chemical engineering, there has to be a match kasi between the number of people, the number of graduates, and the number of openings, no? So I think there needs to be a more proactive liaising between academia and industry. Maybe there must be a way to forge a stronger communication so that the graduates that are churned out will have ready places to fill up. No? Like gaya nung what Elsie mentioned, so let's go for JG Summit, di ba? Pero naroon ba sa top of mind ng graduates na yung JG Summit? Baka puro shell lang ang iniisip or and nag-pull out na yung shell ng So there has to be that kind of strong relationship para people, the graduates get to be more aware of what are the opportunities.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, Alden, for that. So I'm sure the department will consider that. So Jude, you want to move to the next question? So we have about 6 minutes to go. Let's see if we can answer as many of these questions as we can.
Sige po, I think we can end with this half-heartedly parang light question.
Sige.
Do grades actually matter when finding a job?
So I'll tell you my experience as a recruiter. I do not look at grades. Okay, you may find that interesting, but I don't. I like to look at the person's resume as a whole. I look at their motivation. I look at their passion, and I look at their ability to learn and willingness to learn, which usually you can get through the interview. So ako, as a recruiter, that is how I do it. Grades are good. It will never, if you have good grades, it will never count against you. Okay, but if you have bad grades, I will not count it against you either. It's something I can talk to you about, right? So somehow there might be an explanation. So I'm very open to that.
When I joined Proctor Gamble in 1978, it was very important that I belong to the top 20% of the class. They asked me that question, whether I belong to the top 20. Because I did not have a cum laude title. I had a cum laude grade, and they probed me. Because I was a transfer student. I spent my first 2 years in the Ateneo and the next 3 years in UP. And since I did not finish 75% of all the units in UP, I wasn't given my cum laude title or honors. And P&G, I was surprised. Grades were important to them. And over the years, I have observed that grades are important. But in addition to looking at good grades, we also look at the other qualities, the more holistic qualities of the candidate, you know, like leadership skills, like the values of honesty and integrity, problem-solving skills, analytical skills, the competitiveness of the person, thoroughness of the person, etc. You know, if you want a big job, you almost have to be perfect. So do not look down on grades. I mean, I look at the people in P&G like Alden. You know, Alden's grades are pretty good, and look, he's very successful. And I have not come across anybody in Procter and Gamble who had bad grades. Well, first because they were not allowed to enter, and the very successful people in P&G are those who did well academically. And you know what the reason given to me then was that at least in P&G, they look for people who are serious about succeeding.
That's true.
And if you're really serious about succeeding, you got to study well while you're in school. Because if you don't study well, that means you are not very serious about your life. You know, if you have enough intelligence to enter the University of the Philippines, you have enough intelligence to get good grades. There is no reason to fail. And so that was the thinking of the management of Procter & Gamble, and it has worked very well for them. Would you agree with that, Alden?
Yeah, at our time, no? So parang ano, leveling up yan eh, no? So finding a job means you go through several steps. And step 1, you have to pass the screening, no? Paper screening yan. And sa paper screening, mauunang ma-screen yung nag-perform well in school, yeah? Because as Johnip mentioned nga, that's a culmination, that's a summary of what you did in the 5 years, no? So that is a quick picture of how you did in school, and it's not the complete one because there's still steps 2, step 3. You go through other processes and interviews, but yun nga, to get to step 1, you have to have good grades.
Dila, go ahead.
Okay. I agree with both Alden and Johnip. You know, grades are important because it opens more doors. You know, more opportunities are open to you when you have good grades, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you will not find yourself in a successful career. It can open more doors, but if you can enter a door with a low grade, make sure that you work double time.
Yeah.
Because you have to impress the people that you work for much more than someone who has good grades. So if you didn't work for your grades in college, make sure you work harder when you are in a job. So that's all I can say.
Well, what I can say is that grades really matter, but I have different grade requirements for different schools.
Yeah.
So if you're from UP, I look at the grades, and if they're so, then as long as you do well in the interview and show quick thinking, and that you've done you show leadership as mentioned earlier, that's okay. So you don't have to be an honors graduate if you're from UP. That's what I can say. But if you're from other schools, you have to be.
Mas mataas ang bar from other schools, Elsie.
Yes, because I don't know the other schools.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it also has to do with how they do their gradings, right? I mean, if you're not familiar with how a department gives out grades, right? I mean, there are departments who have so much grade inflation that almost everyone has an A or a one average, right? So I agree with you, Elsie. So yeah. You know, and another thing too, I don't know how it is in the Philippines, but in the US, the grades are important only for the first job. Nobody asks you for your GPA after that if you have to move. So it's really important for the first job.
It's just for, like I said, it's just for opening doors when you start.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay. So we are, that's it. And I think we went over. I'm sorry about that. We went 14 minutes over. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. And, you know, we do have other questions. And if you don't mind, I'll collect the questions and send them to the panelists. And if there's a question they want to answer, they feel like, you know, they got to share their answer, you know, we can get it back to the team. How does that sound? So I'll ask that as a gift from our panelists. You know, thank you again so much for giving us your time. So Brian, Jude, Marge, or anyone, any parting thoughts? I mean, this, hopefully our students found value in this panel, and I hope that we can have more of this in the future.
Yes, ma'am, Winnie. Thank you very much to our panel members. It's the first of its kind actually in the department to have this one.
Okay.
And, yes, I believe so.
Well, I didn't realize that. I just thought you had this all the time.
And in a virtual setting at the same time. So just imagine.
Oh yeah, okay,
schedule, right? It's really you know, a great honor for the entire department, and this is open again to all of our students, the graduate, the undergrad. So we've been doing a lot already, even during the pandemic. So some of them were able to shift their research. Some of us are doing our plant design consultation online. You're looking at process flow diagram, DNID online. Has online po lahat. So the thing is that the students are adapting, and still next semester we are online, maybe a little bit of laboratory na hybrid face-to-face but limited basis. However, again, we are very, very thankful because our students are also looking to these opportunities in the future. So they are opening, and they're opening the horizon. You know, the options that they have are all out there. And I also agree with what Ma'am Elsie mentioned about sustainability. So a great effort in the department now actually works on sustainability. So a number of our students can do life cycle analysis, kaya nilang gawin yun. They can do maybe technology assessment, techno-economics, so nagagawa na nila yun. So they incorporate that already in some of their outputs. I think what we can probably do is we will continue this one. You know, we will keep on connecting with more of our alumni because we wanted to show our students that, you know, once you leave the university, you are still connected with the department. You're still part of it. I mean, it's one whole big family, and that connection lasts forever. So I think that's on my part. Sir Jude and Ma'am Marge, you'd like to add something?
Maraming salamat po sa time that you spent with us today. Personally, I learned a lot po from your experiences and sharing, and I hope the students also were able to get some very important insights that they can use in their career and, you know, after they graduate po. So we look forward to more of these, and I hope isa po pala sa yung napag-usapan before, if ano lang, yung sa Chemical Engineering Alumni Foundation. So we're trying to re-strengthen or re-energize the foundation. So we look forward to your cooperation in the future. So ayun po, salamat po. Ma'am Julie, would you like to say something if you're there?
Yeah, thank you po again for your time and your wisdom that you have shared to our students and even to us na faculty. So maraming salamat po, and we hope to see more of you also in the future and more of our alumni actually. So I think we can reach you through Ma'am Winnie, and we have the several programs that we have started since last year. So we hope that you can continue your support to the department, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ma'am Julie. Thanks again, Johnip, Alden, Elsie, and Diday. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this, and wag sana kayong magsasawa. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you for
Thank
the
you for
privilege.
inviting us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's an
Thank you
honor
po.
and pleasure for us. So
Maybe
hanggang
we
sa
can have
susunod.
maybe we can have a photo po, a group photo with the students
Okay.
having their
Oh,
videos
sige.
turned on.
Okay. So they have their videos turned on? So we
Yeah,
can
may we
see
ask
them.
our students to turn on their video if possible, so that we can have a group photo. Jude, kaya mo bang gawin yun for us? Yung screenshot?
Sir, pwedeng kayo
Wait
muna.
lang.
I think I have a busy screen here as a host.
Marge, kaya mo yung screenshot?
Yes, sige.
Sige,
So, wait.
count ka na lang.
We
So-
actually want to see the students too.
Yeah, we want the
Okay lang.
students. Nanlalaki yung mga mukha nating mga alumni.
Well,
Okay.
I want you to know that we have 2 CHE graduates coming in June 1st.
Oh,
Yeah,
My
wonderful.
division.
Okay, so let me count
Alright.
by 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so just let me shape this. Okay,
And then one more, no?
one more kasi meron 2 screens. next
2 panels
one.
pa. Okay.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3 again. Smile. And thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
night.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very
Have a
much.
good
Thank
night.
you po. Stay safe po. Ingat.
Bye.
Thank you, Ma'am Winnie. Have a
Bye-bye.
good morning.
Bye.
Yes. It's gonna be a great day.
Yes.